The entire Women's Tennis Association was completely caught off guard by Eala. The globe and the internet are still buzzing with relentless energy. People have not stopped talking about her ever since. A multi-billion-dollar scandal suddenly erupted across the internet. It aggressively dragged in global celebrities, powerful billionaires, and millions of ordinary people. Her fierce admirers were unexpectedly caught in the digital crossfire. Suddenly, the most talked-about name in women's professional tennis was not just famous for her matches. It had everything to do with the wild rumors circulating off the court. The stark reality of the situation is quite simple. It goes exactly like this. The actual narrative is far more dramatic than any fabricated lie. Once the smoke finally cleared, what truly came to light was deeply concerning. This was so much more than a simple celebrity controversy. It served as a massive warning sign. A revealing mirror was held up to the modern realm of fame. Social media acts as a gloomy apparatus that thrives on exploiting symbolic growth. Here is the entire dramatic tale. Furthermore, you might think you know the truth. If you believe you already understand it, you absolutely do not. You must first comprehend why a billion-dollar scandal attached to her name exploded. This story completely upended the entire internet. You must first understand the true identity of Eala and exactly what she represents to her people. She is a beacon of hope to a whole country. Born on May 23, 2005, in Quezon City, Alexandra Maniego Eala is utterly unique. She is far from ordinary. This tennis whiz is an absolute global sensation. She is the kind of generational athlete who inspires millions worldwide. Her impact extends far beyond her own nation to elevate the actual sport. By the age of 20, she had already achieved unprecedented historical milestones. No Filipino tennis player had ever accomplished these legendary feats before. She brilliantly became the first Grand Slam junior singles champion from the Philippines. She dominated the girls' singles at the United States Open in 2022. The rest of the international tennis community watched in awe. They observed her rapid ascent with wide and astonished eyes. She became the first Filipino to break into the top 100 professional rankings. She was the very first to defeat multiple top 5 tour-level athletes. She boldly advanced to the prestigious semifinals. The year 2026 arrived. She spectacularly reached a world ranking of number 31. This was a glorious career high and the highest for any Filipino player in history. It was a monumental moment for the history of tennis. However, cold statistics are completely unable to convey her true magic. This distinguishes Eala. She stands apart from every other emerging star on the women's circuit. That is absolutely correct. Right now, her legacy goes far beyond mere victories. It is not just about the prestigious ranks. It is about the passionate populace. Whenever Eala performs, massive stadiums in Miami and Dubai fill up. The arenas in Guadalajara are packed to the brim. This is not due to aggressive tournament marketing. It is not because she gets the largest court. Fiercely loyal Filipino fans are the true reason these stadiums fill up. They follow her every single move as closely as a beating heart. They embark on long trips and remain awake until 1 in the morning. They eagerly purchase tickets to unfamiliar cities they have never even visited. They applaud through emotional tears while speaking a beautiful mix of languages. One devoted admirer and internet commenter summed it up quite precisely. Without a single doubt, Eala is the most renowned tennis player right now. It is a spectacular moment. She bravely fought at the Miami Open. She brilliantly triumphed over Madison Keys. She proudly carried the Philippines into global tennis discussions. The sport did not heavily include the Philippines previously. Additionally, she left the court in Dubai in February 2026. This followed a deeply passionate effort that ultimately resulted in a tough loss. She bravely faced Jasmine Paolini before eventually falling short. She never complained and refused to deflect any blame. She quickly took to Instagram, She proudly posted that fighting for 3 weeks with pure pride and love had ended. She cited the profound experience of being a Filipino-born player. It is an immense honor to perform in front of those who see themselves in you. At the vibrant heart of this massive maelstrom was a young lady. She is youthful and elegant, but also carries the weight of an ancient pride. Unfortunately, this makes her a prime target. This is the dark side of rising too quickly and burning too brightly in the modern social media era. You do not simply draw in adoring fans. You inevitably attract something far more sinister. By the beginning of 2026, Eala was undeniably an online sensation. Please remain with us because the following sequence of events gets incredibly crazy. Picture yourself waking up one ordinary morning. Imagine discovering your name permanently attached to one of the most bizarre financial tales ever connected to a sports figure. It was not $50 million. It was not 10 million or a billion, but specifically $1.6 billion. That is precisely the unbelievable scenario Alex experienced in February of 2026. 3 distinct Facebook postings simultaneously started spreading a tale so remarkably amazing. It read like a wildly fictitious movie script. Millions of people in the Philippines and elsewhere immediately stopped scrolling. They rapidly began sharing the astonishing assertion: a powerful billionaire from Abu Dhabi was allegedly involved. The rumors pointed directly to Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the founder of Manchester City Football Club. The fabricated story claimed he personally offered Alex a staggering deal worth over $6 billion. The alleged terms of this contract were highly unusual. It supposedly included a $1 billion down payment followed by hundreds of millions annually for 10 straight years. In return, she would permanently relocate to Abu Dhabi. She would proudly assume the role of queen for a recently launched sporting competition. This was dubbed the prestigious Abu Dhabi Diamond Tennis Championship. The sensational posts immediately went viral across the globe. They were frantically shared thousands of times and gathered tens of thousands of likes. The comment sections completely exploded with joyful congratulations. Devoted supporters were deeply moved, and a few were even brought to tears. These were individuals who had faithfully watched every single game she played. They tracked every ranking step and celebrated each arduous triumph. They honestly had the impression that they were witnessing history unfold once more. Their beloved national idol and daughter was finally being acknowledged. She was allegedly securing a deal that easily surpassed almost anything in the entire history of professional athletics. There was just one massive issue. It was all completely untrue, down to the very last word. A dedicated group of fact-checkers known as Veriphiles rigorously looked into the massive claims. They discovered absolutely no documentation of such a meeting between the Sheikh and Alex. There was no official statement from her camp and no announcement from the association. There was zero confirmation from any reliable news organization anywhere on the entire globe. The whole narrative was completely made up. It was entirely constructed using just a standard picture placed next to an astronomical number. The name was simply big enough to stimulate wild public imagination. Furthermore, this was not even the first time something like this had happened. At roughly the same time, another viral article surfaced. It quickly received 13,000 responses and more than 200 remarks. It claimed she had signed a $45 million agreement with Wilson Sporting Goods. That was also completely untrue. Fact-checkers firmly refuted it, and Rappler officially attested that she remained strictly under her Babolat contract. Wilson was falsely said to have etched a custom racket with the phrase Philippine icon solely for her. None of it was true. Rumors even falsely stated she was signed by Emirates Airlines. Another wild rumor spread that she made a multi-million-dollar donation to the homeless population. This supposedly happened in Quezon City after a massive victory at the Eastbourne Open. It was entirely manufactured. An artificially generated picture even showed her giving a heartfelt hug to a man named Marco. He was purportedly a cancer sufferer who sold his motorbike just to see her perform. The emotional pictures were utterly phony, and the devoted fan did not even exist. Crucially, whoever created these deepfakes carelessly overlooked something major. They completely missed a very crucial specific detail. Alex is naturally left-handed, but she was signing an autograph with her right hand in the artificial images. The deception machine had been operating smoothly for several months, and it had just now created its most explosive product yet. A billion-dollar scandal suddenly engulfed a 20-year-old athlete who was simply attempting to compete on the world stage. She only wanted to engage in professional tennis and make her proud nation shine brightly. But how exactly did it spiral out of control like this, and who was the real culprit? This was definitely not a sheer coincidence. This was not a random, one-time stunt pulled by a bored and disinterested adolescent. What had been relentlessly pursuing Eala for months was something much more structured, highly thoughtful, and insanely lucrative. It was far more profitable than most ordinary people were even vaguely aware of. Rappler, as well as the Nerve, had been closely tracking it for quite a while. The shocking discovery they made was a highly computed digital content network. It was an organized assortment of several tennis-themed Facebook pages with catchy titles like Flow Tennis and Tennis Mood. These deceptive pages had amassed enormous fan bases, but not by providing accurate tennis news. They grew massively by creating poignant and completely fabricated narratives. These emotional stories specifically centered entirely around Alex. The manipulative equation they used was incredibly exact and ruthless. First, they aggressively built a massive viewership of sincere tennis enthusiasts, especially targeting Filipino fans eager to learn about their new idol. Then, they posted completely fabricated tales. These elaborate lies were perfectly designed to evoke strong feelings, massive digital involvement, touching emotions, and righteous indignation. They baited loyal fans with fantasy-level contract declarations. The deceptive postings rapidly produced hundreds of immediate responses, thousands of heated remarks, and a massive flood of shares. Then came the actual cash flow. All of that genuine emotional involvement was sneakily directed to external websites, heavily dotted with commercial advertisements. The more clicks they generated, the more money they ruthlessly raked in. They were easily making thousands of pesos per item, and potentially millions based on the staggering amount of overall web traffic. Something deeply profound was happening beneath the surface. A toxic and incredibly accurate truth about the internet in 2026 was fully grasped by these pages. Ordinary individuals simply do not always confirm facts before hitting share. They share things blindly, particularly when they are deeply moved by an emotional narrative. They are easily driven by pure outrage, immense pride, and profound delight. The wildly fabricated billion-dollar deal narrative successfully set off the absolute purest manifestation of national pride. The inspiring notion that a young girl from Quezon City had completely triumphed. She had become so powerful and so internationally acknowledged that the wealthiest men alive were genuinely prepared to spend a massive fortune. They supposedly wanted to invest more money in her than anyone else on the globe. They were supposedly offering more money than the majority of small countries make annually, just to have her exclusively represent their shining city. It was entirely intended to be taken seriously by the public. The malicious scheme unfortunately worked perfectly. The resulting collateral damage was absolutely huge, as actual public figures were viciously pulled into the digital mess. Veteran news anchor Mel Tienco from the prominent GMA network had to unexpectedly appear on national television. She spoke directly on 24 Horas. This is one of the most widely viewed evening newscasts in the entire Philippines. She had to openly refute bizarre online claims that she had publicly made fun of Eala. The phony viral post blatantly lied and stated that Tienco referred to Eala as vile and incredibly self-centered. It also falsely claimed that Eala answered severely, The
more.
vicious rumor stated she
The
reacted
argument went
incredibly
into
emotionally.
inquiries
None of this
about
occurred at all,
endorsements
as Tianko was
regarding
perfectly measured
structural
and completely
prejudice and
straightforward.
how
She clearly stated that Eala is deeply valued by all Filipinos and is thoroughly deserving of that immense respect and so much more. The heated argument quickly shifted into inquiries. People demanded answers about structural prejudice regarding major athletic endorsements. They passionately questioned how massive Western companies truly perceive and talk to rising Asian players. Eala had a massive breakthrough year where she successfully defeated top players and made a historic run to a Women's Tennis Association 1000 semifinal. She also achieved a stellar career-high rating. Fans wondered why this unprecedented success had not instantly converted into the kind of massive, worldwide headline sponsorships that similar Western athletes routinely attract right now. In the meanwhile, a new storm brewed. The Women's Tennis Association suddenly found itself under harsh criticism from a completely different angle. The organizers of the major professional event in Dubai had chosen a terrible match time slot. This massive scheduling blunder caused a fierce controversy of its very own. They unwisely put Coco Gauff's highly anticipated quarterfinal matchup with Eala as the first game of the evening session. They scheduled her match as the opening act instead of the main event that successfully closes out the night. To the casually uninformed spectator, this seemingly insignificant detail might easily go unnoticed. However, to absolutely everyone who truly recognized the massive scope of her loyal supporters, it was a shockingly serious error. The deeply devoted Filipino supporters were completely disregarded in this terrible process. It unreasonably required the entire population of the Philippines to remain awake until 1 in the morning just to observe the match. Furthermore, she was undeniably the single largest individual draw during that particular stretch of the women's tour. This deeply flawed scheduling decision left many people fiercely wondering why the powerful organization in charge of encouraging women's tennis was failing so badly. They were drastically failing at making proper use of their most thrilling youthful celebrity. Prominent tennis publications quickly mentioned the glaring mistake publicly to the masses. The entire Women's Tennis Association circuit, as well as the local event organizers in Dubai, were suddenly facing intense global scrutiny. One major news outlet openly stated that the tournament organizers certainly do not have an inherently easy job. However, if their ultimate goal is to properly maximize her incredibly fast, increasing popularity, they must be much smarter. They are completely unable to simply continue making these massive operational errors without facing severe backlash. That loud professional criticism was strongly echoed across thousands of heated social media comments. It flooded digital areas and passionate fan forums where devoted fans were already deeply irritated by the firmly established systems. These rigid systems were supposedly designed to radically improve the women's game. At times, professional tennis was arguably the most popular sport in the entire world, yet it repeatedly erected massive barriers. It constantly blocked the sight of its own radiant and rising stars. It quickly became a complete and utter internet storm that nobody could easily escape. A massive digital door had been forcefully kicked open by a completely fabricated billion-dollar falsehood. That wide-open door unleashed years of pent-up annoyance, fierce national pride, profound affection, and completely rightful public complaint. All of these intense emotions were violently circling one another. It was all blowing right into the face of Eala as she stood in the chaotic middle of a terrifying digital storm. However, despite all the deafening cacophony and bitter public dispute, she finally said something. The massive deception had reached a boiling point, and exactly what she bravely stated altered the entire course of everything. It would have been incredibly simple for Eala to become highly upset and furiously lash out at everyone. She could have easily made a fiery declaration through her professional management team to bitterly punish her online detractors. She could have quickly published something fiercely aggressive to directly attack the fake pages. Giving those deceptive digital hubs a massive public clapback would have been incredibly easy. She could have loudly attacked the vicious falsehoods concerning her private life and her professional business deals. Many highly seasoned athletes would have readily chosen that aggressive path, and many professional athletes have indeed done exactly that in the recent past. This immediately followed her tough departure from the Women's Open, where she lost to Colombia. She faced a brutal exit in the intense quarterfinals against Camila Osorio, which left a deeply devoted Manila audience utterly heartbroken. Yet, instead of bitterly complaining, Eala strolled directly back to work on a quiet practice court. She immediately connected with her trusted coach, Joan Bosch, specifically to seriously talk about the technical matters that desperately needed immediate repair. She did not fiercely demand a massive news outlet conference. She did not want a media circus filled with bitter complaints, nor did she angrily type out a lengthy Facebook post brimming with unchecked passion. She simply and professionally returned to her daily job of hitting tennis balls. Additionally, when she was finally forced to confront the massive wave of false information, her carefully chosen statements were remarkably calm and perfectly measured. Her silent and stoic manner was devastatingly obvious to absolutely everyone watching. She clearly and softly stated that she truly has absolutely no control over the chaotic situation. She calmly explained that she has zero control over exactly what other individuals choose to maliciously publish online. She firmly stated that she is keenly aware that there have indeed been several viral pieces of completely false news circulating. She honestly admitted that it is deeply worrisome, especially as she sometimes sees them get a massive number of likes. She added that it is incredibly challenging to effectively recognize the subtle differences when you suddenly see fake news pop up on the internet. She is thoroughly well versed in the unfortunate reality of the modern web. She knows very well that completely good people may sometimes get terribly misguided by bad actors. She hesitated for a brief moment, and then, without a single trace of bitter resentment or flashy showmanship, she provided honest guidance. It was the absolute only practical guidance she firmly believed she could directly provide to her highly loyal fans. She politely stated that, in her honest opinion, they should simply look for highly trustworthy news sources. She gently encouraged her faithful followers to try their absolute hardest to carefully pay attention only to truly trustworthy media outlets. She firmly concluded by saying that is all she can honestly advise. She essentially told the world that she has absolutely nothing else to say on the dark matter. It was merely a handful of incredibly simple and polite phrases. However, they heavily bore the immense burden of someone who had silently watched a completely parallel version of herself be meticulously created on the internet. It had been happening for several agonizing months without her consent. It was a bizarre digital version that constantly inked massive billion-dollar deal contracts and ruthlessly disparaged highly seasoned reporters. This fake persona gladly accepted massive financial donations from wealthy individuals. Yet, the real Eala had deliberately decided to simply continue playing beautiful tennis instead of bitterly battling the internet. During her brief remarks, she also powerfully addressed something infinitely more profound about her life. She explained that she tries her absolute hardest because she is profoundly aware of her unique position. She knows that particularly on the grand global stage, she directly represents a massive demographic. She beautifully articulated that it is truly a profound privilege to possess this deeply dedicated community and this unwavering support. She is incredibly moved by how they consistently come together for her. This remarkable 20-year-old woman is currently ranked 31st in the entire world. She proudly stands as the highest-ranking Filipino player in the long and storied history of the sport. She is gracefully carrying the heavy hopes of over 100 million people on her highly capable shoulders. Her quiet dignity instantly caused the malicious fake news machine to appear incredibly tiny in stark contrast. The actual, verifiable details concerning her legitimate business situation eventually revealed their very own compelling narrative. By February of 2026, her genuine career prize money was roughly $1.49 million. That specific sum is incredibly important and highly impressive given her current upward trajectory and young age. However, it is nowhere close to the wild, astronomical fantasy figures being aggressively produced on the internet. Her actual corporate sponsors proudly include major global brands like Babolat, Nike, Globe Telecom, and the Bank of the Philippine Islands. Additionally, she recently secured highly meaningful local partnerships with companies like Juice. These were deeply sincere business collaborations, strictly based on her actual, hard-earned athletic success. They were firmly built on genuine mutual trust rather than massive, billion-dollar digital fakes. Her actual professional career is definitively not some wild mythology cheaply produced by artificial intelligence. She holds real, legally binding bargains with actual individuals who have a genuine, deep belief in the athlete. They fiercely believe in her tremendous potential and her very real, historic tennis accomplishments. Her completely authentic achievements effortlessly made every single fictitious number seem completely superfluous and entirely unnecessary. She brilliantly defeated world-class opponents like Iga Swiatek and triumphantly earned a highly coveted wildcard spot. She fiercely battled her way into a prestigious Women's Tennis Association 1000-level semifinal. She gloriously won the highly competitive Guadalajara 125 tournament event. She fearlessly began competing at the absolute highest levels, boldly stepping onto the courts at the French Open, Wimbledon, and the United States Open. She powerfully became the very first person from the Philippines to win a main draw match during a Grand Slam in the Open era. She spectacularly reached a worldwide ranking of number 31. That was an absolute, undisputed career high for the young phenomenon. The true billions that deeply counted were these specific, unglamorous moments heavily invested in her craft. It was not about fake money, but rather the endless time dedicated to the past. It was not about fabricated agreements, but rather the arduous, lonely path taken to finally reach this point. This naturally leads us directly to the absolute most important and pressing question of all. What exactly does all of this madness mean for her, for the prestigious sport of tennis, and for the world at large? The world simply never stops obsessively trying to neatly characterize her very existence. There is a very specific, intense kind of celebrity status that unfortunately occurs for certain once-in-a-generation players. They often become massive cultural emblems long before they have even finished physically developing as athletes. The legendary Muhammad Ali certainly experienced this intense, overwhelming cultural phenomenon. It was heavily carried by the iconic Serena Williams, and it is currently carried by the brilliant Naomi Osaka. Now, in the highly turbulent year of 2026, that exact same heavy cultural burden is actively carried by Eala. It is the immense burden of being so much more than simply a professional tennis player. She has unexpectedly become a massive national movement and a powerful mirror for society. The entire country eagerly views its own boundless potential, reflected right back in her remarkable and highly public journey. The massive, billion-dollar digital scandal and the relentless deluge of false information wildly surrounding it were not isolated incidents. They were glaring, undeniable warning signs for the entirely modern age. They were dark symptoms of a deeply toxic digital ecosystem that heavily prioritizes raw emotion far above objective reality. They were clear symptoms of a global sports industry that is currently heavily lagging behind. The established athletic industry simply has not yet built sufficient infrastructure to adequately safeguard its most valuable emerging talents. They are actively failing to protect young stars from being ruthlessly exploited online. Additionally, these bizarre events were glaring signs of a much older and far more deeply ingrained human propensity. We constantly and eagerly exaggerate the profound abilities of those we deeply admire. We forcefully turn them into mythical legends, even before they have had the simple, quiet opportunity to just be fantastic on their own natural terms. There is always a massive, terrifying risk involved here. There is a terrifying risk of the actual human being getting completely drowned out by the deafening digital loudness. Eala is already a truly fantastic and mesmerizing competitor on the tennis court. She absolutely does not need a completely fabricated deal for $1 billion just to be wildly entertaining to carefully watch. She is absolutely not in need of lazily generated, artificial narratives to prove her worth. She does not need completely fake stories about miraculously meeting with powerful billionaires or curing cancer patients just to be highly motivating. She has already genuinely surpassed the incredible world record on her very own merit. An entire country immediately fell madly in love with her, and a niche sport that they hardly even knew existed at this elite professional level. She confidently appeared on bright city courts she had never previously visited. She effortlessly filled those massive international stadiums and met passionate individuals who had eagerly traveled hundreds of miles just to loudly chant her powerful name. The recent scheduling dispute unfortunately revealed its very own uneasy tale. How institutions can severely fall behind their own rising stars when the absolute most well-liked player is forced to start the evening session rather than triumphantly ending it. It is baffling when her most dedicated fans are actually advised to remain awake until 1 in the morning. They are expected to lose sleep just to witness her elegantly perform on the court. There is clearly a massive systemic problem deeply embedded in the organizational equipment of the entire sport. It is certainly not acting malevolently or even intentionally, but it is structurally flawed and absolutely must be dealt with immediately. This urgency is required because the phenomenal growth of Eala is simply not slowing down anytime soon. She is a mere 20 years old, officially rated 31st on the entire planet, and rapidly rising at an unprecedented rate. She is easily outpacing even the most bullish professional forecasts that failed to anticipate her true potential. She completely changes the dynamic of everything she actively touches in the sporting world. Following a tough defeat against Coco Gauff in Dubai with an unbalanced score of 0-6 and 2-6, Eala recognized the painful loss with her typical brand of brutal honesty. She absolutely did not attempt to cowardly conceal herself from the harsh reality of the final outcome. She bravely stated in her post-game interview that she genuinely believes the competitive distance between them was rather noticeably vast. She openly acknowledged this wide gap without a single shred of bitter hesitation. That is entirely separate from mentioning that she feels she is currently so far away from the elite level of these veteran athletes. She definitely did not speak with the depressing deflation of a truly defeated individual. Instead, she spoke with the laser-focused attention of someone who had already determined precisely what grueling work must be completed next. She knew exactly what it would take to eventually conquer those massive athletic hurdles. Then, she thoughtfully made a beautiful post on Instagram that was absolutely not a bitter grievance or a desperate search for unjustification. It was simply a profound quotation highlighting the absolute privilege of performing in front of onlookers who can actually see themselves reflected beautifully inside you. Suddenly, the chaotic global story gracefully went right back to exactly where it always fundamentally belongs. It inevitably comes back to a place of pure love, deep honor, and unwavering purpose for Eala. The entirely phony $8 billion deal sensationally erupted across the internet, but then quickly burnt out in a matter of mere days. However, Eala's true nature involves meticulously constructing real ranking points. She fights for those crucial points match by exhausting match across 3 completely different global continents. Meanwhile, an entire proud country faithfully observes her massive journey from home, and that profound loyalty is absolutely not going anywhere. The devoted fans at home ensure that the Women's Tennis Association is continuously reminded of her sheer massive importance. The fake scandal ultimately made the governing body acutely aware of something they probably already secretly knew. They possessed this vital knowledge but simply had not given it nearly enough serious thought before the viral explosion. Eala is absolutely not in need of any cheaply manufactured, fake narratives to be totally relevant. The true, compelling narrative is completely about her very real and tangible actions. Each and every single time she steps onto the professional court, the entire tale naturally revolves completely around her undeniable talent. Additionally, the internet, in all of its wild anarchy, relentless inventiveness, and sometimes brutal harshness, is completely unavoidable. Yet, it actually served to loudly validate exactly what real tennis fans were already acutely aware of. She is undeniably present, and she is completely, undeniably genuine in every single aspect. Additionally, she is quite literally just getting started on this historic athletic journey. Thus, this is an incredibly worthwhile and thought-provoking question to passionately post in the comment section tonight. In a chaotic digital world where phony multi-billion-dollar contracts spread like wildfire, these fabricated lies spread so much more quickly compared to actual, hard-fought Grand Slam tournament wins. What exactly does it indicate about our modern societal values regarding our beloved athletes? Furthermore, we must genuinely ask if the current structural system is properly designed to safeguard up-and-coming generational talent like Eala, or is it instead ruthlessly designed to take unfair advantage of them? Eala definitely did not agree to a fake billion-dollar contract because she absolutely did not have to. What she actually agreed to through each and every single highly competitive game she has proudly played is something far more binding. It is a profound, unspoken pledge to a whole proud country desperately yearning for representation. It is a promise that someone from the Philippines is finally able to boldly stand on the absolute largest global courts. She is there not just to simply compete, but to truly and deeply belong among the absolute elite of the sporting world. The internet and all of its malicious false news violently blew up and then faded away. After all was finally said and done, she was just right where she always consistently is, standing on the hard court. She is endlessly laboring, continuously rising, and remaining completely genuine, which means nobody has to ever make up the tale. If you sincerely think this incredible story deeply touched your heart, the true, unfiltered story of Eala should definitely resonate with you. If you are genuinely dedicated to uncovering the actual truth, please click the subscribe button at this exact moment. We passionately discuss the hidden human tales securely tucked behind the flashy digital drama. We dive deep into the absolute truth, the actual match scores, and every single vital detail entirely missed by the blazing mainstream headlines. We proudly deliver fresh, highly compelling videos each and every single week. Please do not ever overlook what exciting content is currently arriving next on our dedicated channel.